Hey, it's Bobby. Welcome back to now. I said I was going to get rid of the day count and time is an illusion. So here we are, wherever here is, and the only time there ever is, the eternal now. So I'm curious as to how you did with the concept that our feelings are never, ever telling us about our circumstances. They're only giving us an internal weather report about how we're doing on the inside. Sometimes it's telling us about how we're being. At other times, it's telling us about what and how we are thinking. And we'll explore both of those individually. There is knowledge and wisdom in both of those, and it's worth diving in and doing an exploration. And I want to encourage you that if any of the concepts that we're talking about from here on out are sticky, you don't get them, they're not making any sense, please reach out, because this is a progressive journey. And if some of the stuff that I'm talking to you about in this video or the last one or the one before that or the next one doesn't make sense, it's going to get progressively harder and harder to follow up. This is an experiential journey. This is not something that you can cram for. So you got to go inside and check out how you're doing with that. And to that end, in the next couple of days, I'm going to offer a Zoom call. It'll be a virtual satsang where we will come together in truth, which is what satsang is. Sat is truth. Song is a coming together. In yogic traditions, they talk about sangha, which is the community. Satsang is truth in the community, a coming together for truth. So that'll be a good opportunity to, I'll guide you through a nice little experience, which will be cool, and it'll be a good opportunity to ask questions. So be looking for that announcement. It'll be in the next day or two. And just if you have questions in whatever form or fashion, you need to reach out. And to the degree that you're comfortable doing a post someplace, tagging me in that post, that's the most effective way, because odds are good if you're having questions, other people are having questions as well. That's just kind of the way that all of this works. So we talked a little bit about the idea that our thoughts are not telling us about our circumstances, whether or not there are actually any spiders in your vicinity. That'll make sense if you've seen the last video. Or is it telling you about your thinking about spiders? And this is in the coaching work that I do, the one-on-one work that I do. This is a sticky concept. It's a chasm that some people have trouble jumping over, and people want to fight. That is ego fighting for its job. You know, we've mentioned that Einstein saying that the rational mind, the egoic mind, the critical mind, you can lump those all into the same group, is a faithful servant. The intuitive mind, pure consciousness, God's infinite love and awareness, source, consciousness, whatever label that you want to give that, is a sacred gift. But we live in a society that worships the servant and has forgotten the gift. So let's spend a little time today talking about our mind-body connection. and see if we can really understand what's going on. And there is a debate in several areas of different applied psychologies, which I use in the work that I do. And I keep track of all of the literature that they've got there, whether or not our feelings cause our thinking. In other words, if we're actually feeling good, do we tend to have more pleasant thoughts? Or are our thoughts controlling how we feel on the inside? And is it simply a matter of thinking positive thoughts? Will that have an effect on our body? And the answer to that is neither and both. Bit of a paradox. We'll just stick with both because that's easier to wrap our heads around. So, to the degree that we need to intellectually understand this conversation, that makes the path a little bit smoother. And you can see if there's something that's really making you feel good on the inside for whatever reason, you are that commuter that is in that blissful Zen-like state, even though you're stuck in traffic. If you just look around, if you're stuck in traffic and you can look out at the trees and go, wow, I've never really appreciated just how beautifully that light reflects off of the trees. You tend to appreciate things more and differently. And the opposite of that is also true. If you've ever participated in like a gratitude project where you're sitting down and every day you're ending the day and beginning the day and maybe sprinkling in a little in the middle of the day, what are some things that you are grateful for? What you're doing is focusing awareness on a specific subject. And wherever we put awareness, that's going to tend to be amplified. If you're meditating and you're focusing on your breath and getting into the nuance of your breath, that can become a fascinating exercise. If you hear stories of people who have been on trips on mushroom or LSD or ayahuasca or peyote, any of those consciousness altering substances that can chemically induce a certain response, a transcendence in many cases. People will say, I was in the backyard and I was just looking at this ant farm, and the ant farm just became all consuming. That's because, with the help in that case of an outside catalyst, a chemical, um, our attention and focus got very, very narrow, very complete. Same thing that happens in trance. In trance work, I tell people who have never been hypnotized before, trance requires three things: imagination, concentration, and focus. And if you've got those three things, you can easily go into trance. In fact, if you have those three things, you are in and out of trance all day, every day. It's just in hypnosis, we're doing it rather than haphazardly and accidentally. We're doing it on purpose and by design for a specific outcome there. So there's no question, if we're thinking scary thoughts, our body is going to react to those scary thoughts. And it's going to react by kicking in the sympathetic nervous system and getting the neurochemicals, the neurotransmitters of fear and excitement coursing through our veins. Our blood pressure will shift and we'll keep more and more of our blood in our torso. Our breathing will get very, very shallow when we're scared. We've got adrenaline and cortisol, which amp up our ability to perceive what's going on around us. Our sensory acuity goes through the roof when we're in that flight or fight response. And scary thinking can absolutely do that. I was walking through the woods late one night, like about 2 o'clock in the morning, pitch black, and I heard off to the side something making its way through the woods. 2 o'clock in the morning. It was summertime here in Alaska. My immediate thought goes to, might be a bear, might be a moose. I'm alone at night on a trail. Not a good place to be. And man, I got amped the fuck up. I mean, I was like really going on, and it got closer and closer. I started backing away. Turns out, hilarious in retrospect, it was a drunk guy who had lost the path and was trying to make his way back to the path again. And when I saw him, I'm like, here's the campsite's this way, buddy. Go down about 50 yards and you'll see the lights. And people had fires going on. But in that moment, that response was 100% completely appropriate. And was it my thinking? Part of it was my thinking, because what I heard was a noise. My critical mind analyzed that it might be a moose or a bear, and that's a good thing. If I'm just walking down the path and ignorance is bliss, and I'm like, oh, there's some sentient being that's off on the side making a noise, and it turns out to be a mama protecting her cubs, whether it's a moose or a bear, that does not end well for Bobby. So all of that is part of the grace of the design. But because of the fact that we live in this perceived reality, and the hypnosis of social conditioning kicks in as soon as we learn to speak, it doesn't look as if these feelings, it doesn't seem as if that feeling is telling us about what's going on the inside. What that's telling us about is what our circumstances are. That's what it looks like to us. That's what we've been conditioned to believe is actually happening. And that condition believes as soon as we can talk. One of the very first things that our parents start to do is they name us. They've already named us, but they introduce us to the name. There was a day when I was just a bundle, and so were you, of pure consciousness with no perceived separation. We talked about, the full sensory experience of eating that paper and wanting to hear how it sounds and see how it tastes and crunkle it up and see how it feels and listen to the sound that it makes. It was, just, we wanted to know all about it. We were just filled with exploration. And then my mommy says, "You're Bobby, I'm mommy." And all of a sudden, now there's a separation. Prior to that, it didn't bother me when mommy walked away. I maybe barely noticed it. Now, all of a sudden, separation anxiety is introduced. And now that I know mommy is separate, I become very concerned when mommy's not around. And we start to see that things are happening differently. And then pretty soon, our parents start to say, "Bobby, when you cry, it makes me sad on the inside." So, getting us to be mommies and daddies like us. When baby's happy and laughing and giggling and smiling, they don't like it. Like Zen Dad, he wasn't thrilled, I'm sure, when that baby was crying the way that baby was crying. And we start to teach judgment about certain feelings, that certain feelings are good and certain feelings are bad. And certain feelings have an effect on those around us. And later in life, that sticks with us as we get older. And Madison Avenue starts getting involved in the process and says, um, hey, you're not good enough yet. But with six-pack abs and the right amount of money in the bank account and a cool new car, all of a sudden we got Bobby 2.0, and Bobby 2.0 is going to be a chick magnet, baby. That's all the conditioning that we're exposed to, but it's not reality. Our wisdom is guiding us. The feelings that we have, those gut feelings in our heart and in our gut. There's a meme that's going around that your gut has more wisdom than your head ever will. And we've talked about that journey, the 14 inches from your head to your heart. And we'll explore that a little bit more. So for today, I would like you to just continue to play with this. And to the degree that you're able to catch yourself and think, you go to the bank account or to the bank, you hand a credit card. And if your financial situation is where that little voice inside your head says, I hope this goes through, check and see what's actually going on the inside. Or if somebody happens to say something that triggers an internal response in you, pull on that string just a little bit, but do it from the prism, just as a thought experiment, that what that person said or what that person did or that look that they gave me has nothing to do with the way that I'm feeling on the inside. And if you've got questions, reach out. This is not the place that you want to get stuck. When you get this shift, much in your world is going to change. And as I've said earlier, much will stay the same, but just the way you show up is going to change dramatically, which is going to have a cool effect on the way that you make your way through the world. So let me know your thoughts. Write a comment, shoot me a direct message, reach out any way that you can, and we'll talk again tomorrow. And then in the not too distant future, we'll do that live Zoom call, our virtual set song. So ciao for now. Bye-bye.